Okay, think about this. In just a little over 50 years, a group of coastal sheikdoms went from diving for pearls to literally reaching for the stars. It's an incredible story. So today, we're going to dive into how the United Arab Emirates pulled off one of the most amazing national transformations in modern history. And believe it or not, how they're planning to do it all over again.
I mean, this picture really says it all, doesn't it? On one side, you've got these pearl diving boats, the absolute lifeblood of the entire region for centuries. And on the other, well, you've got a skyline that just seems to defy gravity and even a space probe orbiting Mars. So the big question, the one we're really digging into here, is how on earth did this happen? How do you go from there to here in such a short time? To figure that out, we've got to go back to the very beginning.
All right, so let's start at the foundation, pearls and protectorates. See, before the UAE was even a country, its identity was really shaped by two major things. First, the incredible wealth they pulled from the sea, and second, this really complex political relationship they had with the British Empire.
What's so wild to me is just how dominant this one industry was. Before a single drop of oil was found, it was all about pearls. I mean, just let that number sink in for a second. 74,000 men. This wasn't just a job, you know? It was the entire rhythm of life. It dictated everything. Family, when you traveled. It was, quite literally, the foundation of their whole world.
Okay, so while the economy was all about pearls, the political scene was being totally reshaped by the British, and you can see how it happened right here on this timeline. Over 100 years, a few key treaties basically changed all the rules. First, they dealt with piracy. Then they enforced a permanent truce at sea, which brought stability. And then came the big one in 1892, the exclusive agreement. This was the deal, right? The local rulers basically said, okay, we won't deal with any other foreign powers, and in exchange, Britain promised to protect them. It created stability, for sure, but it also made them very dependent.
And that series of truces is actually where the region got its name for the next 80 years or so, the Trucial States. So what you had was a collection of sheikdoms, each independent on the inside, but all protected from the outside by Britain. Now, this whole setup worked, it provided stability, but that foundation, that entire pearl economy we talked about, it was about to get completely shattered by events happening halfway across the world.
And this, right here, is the massive turning point in our story. Because by the middle of the 20th century, those two big pillars holding everything up, pearls and British protection, they just started to crumble. The Brits were on their way out, leaving this huge power vacuum, and all of a sudden these states faced a massive choice. Try to go it alone in a really tough neighborhood, or do something radical. Unite and create a brand new future together.
So what was the final push? Well, as this quote makes pretty clear, it all came down to money. Post-World War II, Britain was broke and just couldn't afford its global empire anymore. So when they announced in 1968 that they were pulling all their forces out, it created this massive, dangerous power vacuum. And for the rulers of the Trucial States, it raised a terrifyingly simple question. What do we do now? So in response, two really forward-thinking leaders, Sheikh Zayed of Abu Dhabi and Sheikh Rashid of Dubai, they met out in the desert and made a historic agreement to form a union. The original idea was actually bigger, a federation of 9 emirates. But then Bahrain and Qatar decided to go their own way and become independent nations. So the other 7 pushed ahead. And on December 2nd, 1971, 6 of them officially formed the United Arab Emirates. A few months later, Ras Al Khaimah joined, and that completed the country we know today.
But look, you can have the greatest political vision in the world, but you need an economic engine to make it happen. And as luck or fate would have it, they had just struck gold. Black gold, that is. The discovery of oil gave them the unbelievable wealth they needed to turn that dream of a unified country into the reality of roads, hospitals, schools, all of it. Oil was the fuel that fired up their ambition.
So, that oil wealth is what built the UAE that we see today. And it's this really fascinating place, right? It's defined by this constant push and pull between being a global hub and holding on to its deep local culture. So what's it actually like to live and work in this very modern creation?
Well, for the millions of expats who actually make up most of the population, life is very, very structured. That residency visa you see here, it's not just a piece of paper. It's the key to everything. Working, opening a bank account, you name it. And this isn't just red tape for the sake of it. It really reflects how the society is set up. It's a kind of social contract designed to manage a huge and incredibly diverse workforce.
But underneath all that shiny, modern surface, tradition is still the absolute bedrock of the culture. Hospitality, for instance, isn't just about being polite, it's a core value. The little things, like using your right hand, the shared rhythm of the 5 daily prayers, and the respect shown during Ramadan, all of that is part of a cultural fabric that's held strong through all this incredible change.
And here's what's so remarkable. This very traditional foundation supports one of the most diverse places on the entire planet. We're talking about people from over 200 nationalities living and working together. The country has an official policy of religious tolerance, and you can see that in action with things like the Abrahamic family house. Think about that. A mosque, a church, and a synagogue, all built side by side. That's more than just a symbol. It's a huge statement about the kind of global hub the UAE wants to be.
Okay, so we've established that oil built the modern UAE. But here's the thing. The country's leaders know, they are keenly aware, that oil can't be the fuel for the next 50 years. And that brings us to our final chapter, their incredibly ambitious plan to engineer a second great transformation. In this chart, this is basically the blueprint. It's the UAE's energy strategy for 2050. The headline goal is to get almost half of all their energy from alternative and nuclear sources. Now, this isn't just about being green. Make no mistake, this is a strategic move for economic survival in a world that is very clearly moving away from fossil fuels.
And let me be clear, this isn't some far-off, distant dream. These goals are aggressive, and they're for the near future. Just look at this number, 14 gigawatts. Their goal is to triple their renewable energy capacity by 2030. That is a massive undertaking. To give you some perspective, that's enough juice to power millions of homes. It's a huge, all-in bet on the power of the sun and wind.
And it goes beyond just kilowatts, It's about people. This whole energy transition is designed to create 50,000 new high-skilled jobs in green industries. This is about building a totally new economy, one where the next generation has opportunities long after the last barrel of oil has been sold. So what's really clear when you look at this is that they are not putting all their eggs in one basket, not at all. This is a full-spectrum strategy. You've got one of the world's biggest solar plants, the Arab world's very first nuclear power plant, plus they're pushing hard into new frontiers like hydrogen and carbon capture. They're basically building a whole new, diversified energy arsenal for the future.
Which brings us to the final and I think most critical question. The first transformation, from pearls to oil, was absolutely historic. Now the UAE is betting everything that it can pull off a second, equally massive shift, this time from oil to the atom and the sun. Whether they succeed or fail, well, that's going to define their next 50 years, and it might just give the rest of us a fascinating look at what's possible as the whole world tries to figure out this exact same problem.